Before we start our dangerous manhunt for one of the CIA's most wanted, we want to thank this video's sponsor, Conflict of Nations World War III. Conflict of Nations is a free-to-play online strategy game where you lead a real country through World War III. You can choose to forge alliances with other nations or expand your territory through brute force. You'll have even more tools at your disposal than the special forces in this documentary, fighting with tanks, jets and nuclear submarines against up to 128 other players in real-time battles that can last for weeks. Not only that, you can play on PC or mobile with the same account. So if you love strategy games, you can claim a very special offer for Real Crime viewers. Click the link in the description to get 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. But hurry, this offer is only available for the next 30 days. Now, on to the documentary.
Terrorists hijack a holiday flight full of civilians. They rig the plane with high explosives.
One press of a button, the whole aircraft could be destroyed.
Over the next 6 days, the attackers show no mercy.
They just change the dynamics of the game when you kill an innocent person.
The terrorists seem to hold all the cards.
It's a bad target to attack.
With a massacre just seconds away, the Special Forces team have to go in.
When death comes through the door, all they think about is stopping those people in black coming towards them.
One of the male terrorists appears with 2 hand grenades. These are deadly moments.
The lives of 86 innocent hostages are in the balance. The rescue mission will go down in Special Forces history. Operation Fire Magic. October the 13th, 1977. Lufthansa Flight LH-181 takes off from the island of Majorca. It sets a course over the Mediterranean Sea. On board are 5 crew and 86 passengers.
Flight LH-181 was a typical holiday flight from Palma, Mallorca back to Frankfurt. People had just enjoyed a good holiday, they were relaxed, they'd had a good time. Nobody could conceive what was about to happen.
As the pilot steers homeward bound towards Germany,
there were 2 terrorists at the back of the plane, 2 terrorists at the front. They're screaming, they're shouting.
The terrorists had pistols and grenades.
The passengers realised instantly this is a hijack situation.
the 4 terrorists herd the passengers to the back of the plane. They want all of the hostages where they can see them.
First thing they want to do is create fear on that plane. They grab a stewardess and they hit so hard that it crushes their face. It showed everybody on the plane that these guys are meaning business.
In the cockpit, Captain Jürgen Schumann and co-pilot Jürgen Viertel are held at gunpoint. They have no choice. They surrender to the terrorists. Captain Schumann is forced to set a course for Rome, Italy. The terrorists are in total control. The leader begins to mock his hostages.
He announced to all the passengers that he had taken over the aircraft and that he was in control. This was a moment of sheer terror for all the passengers. They knew that everything had changed and their lives were on the line now.
The plane is now near the south of France. The flight to Rome will take just over an hour. When the plane touches down, the terrorists radio the Italians in the control tower. Only now do they reveal what they want. The attack is the work of the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. During the 1970s, this group of political terrorists had been involved in hijacks across the world and had a history of murder.
They were fanatically committed to their cause and they were wanting to see this through to the end.
If you comply with our instructions...
One of the most dangerous terrorists in the PFLP is leading the hijack. He calls himself Captain Marta Mahmoud.
The leader, Mahmoud, seemed to be really powerful within the group of four terrorists inside the aircraft, and he would destroy the aircraft, or he would kill people in order to get his own way.
This 22-year-old fanatic is a formidable opponent.
Captain Mahmoud's real name was Zuhair Akache. He had grown up in the refugee camps in the Middle East, where he'd become radicalised. But he was also a clever man. He trained in aeronautical engineering in the UK, and he learned how to fly Cessna aircraft.
I said listen!
Mahmoud reads his demands to the Italian authorities. The PFLP want $15 million, the release from prison of 2 Palestinian terrorists, and 11 members of the notorious Baader Meinhof group. These left-wing militants had embarked on a campaign of bombings, assassinations, and kidnappings within Germany. If these dangerous terrorists aren't freed, and all of Mahmoud's terms aren't met, his team will destroy the plane and kill all of the hostages. In Germany, the job of dealing with the crisis lands on the desk of Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, a minister in the German government.
Wisniewski had a number of very difficult roles to fulfill. One was to negotiate with all the countries in which the aircraft landed and to gain approval for armed action if necessary. The other, of course, was to negotiate with the terrorists, and the key point was buy time. The more time you had, the more space you had in which to act.
With 87 hostages' lives at stake, there's no time to waste. One of the first calls Wisniewski makes is to Germany's elite special forces team, GSG-9.
GSG-9 is a law enforcement SWAT team that are highly trained. They're trained in diving, they're trained in parachuting, coming out of helicopters, fast roping. They're trained in sniper operations, and of course, close quarters combat.
GSG-9, cracking force. You know, they ain't going to be fluffy about things. They're going to get on with the mission and sort it.
GSG-9 were born out of one of the darkest days in post-war German history. September the 5th, 1972, the Munich Olympics. Palestinian terrorists take Israeli athletes hostage. The German police launch a rescue raid but it goes badly wrong. All of the hostages are killed. GSG-9, a specialist anti-terrorist unit, is created just 6 months later, so the same mistakes aren't made again. The new team is led by 48-year-old Ulrich Wegener.
Colonel Wegener was the driving force behind GSG-9. He had some experience working with the British SAS, also had experience working with Israeli special forces groups, and he was able to take a lot of that knowledge and create this souped-up SWAT team that primarily focused on anti-terrorism.
Wegener immediately realizes that attacking the hijacked plane will be an extremely difficult mission. He puts in a call.
Davies.
Barry Davies has spent years training with Britain's crack troops, the SAS.
The SAS had decided to set up counter-terrorist teams, and that had already been done some years before. We practiced on aircraft. Assaults were the big one, you know, how quickly you can get in from a starting point to actually closing with the terrorist and saving the hostages.
The SAS have pioneered new techniques and equipment to deal with plane hijacks. Critically, they have experience dealing with terrorists in Malaya and Northern Ireland.
The SAS were world leaders in counter-terrorism. And I guess GSG-9 thought, yeah, let's have an observer team on board to see, if they can help us out.
Within hours of the Germans' request, Davies and one of his SAS colleagues prepare to fly out and join the assault team. In Rome, the hijacked plane takes off after being refueled by the Italian authorities. On board, Mahmoud forces pilot Jürgen Schumann to fly towards the Middle East, looking for somewhere new to land.
Captain Schumann has to pilot the aircraft to destinations that hadn't been planned, destinations that are refusing him entry, and all the while with a gun at his head and the threat of the aircraft being destroyed.
The plane flies from Rome to Cyprus. It is then denied landing rights in Beirut, Damascus, and Baghdad. It's allowed a 1.5-hour stop in Bahrain before being forced to fly on to Dubai. It's been over 15 hours since the hijack began. For now, flight LH-181 is allowed to stay on the runway in Dubai. The passengers endure stifling heat, hunger, and dehydration.
It was a pressure cooker inside the aircraft.
The terrorists eventually allow food and water on board, but the conditions inside continue to deteriorate. Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, the politician in charge of the operation, flies into Dubai and begins negotiations with the government there.
The politicians behind the scenes have to make sure that it's okay to bring another country's special operations force into a host country and conduct a mission. I mean, that takes delicate political maneuvering to be able to get that accomplished.
But Wisniewski cannot convince the Dubai authorities to allow the main GSG-9 team in to carry out the rescue mission. They insist on using local troops who don't have any specialist training. Only Wegener and 2 other GSG-9 officers are allowed to land. The rest of the GSG-9 team remain grounded. But there is some good news. The Dubai authorities do allow the two-man British unit in to join Wegener.
We got on the plane, flew to Dubai. We then introduced ourselves to Wegener. We started talking, and it was like meeting a long-lost brother.
Wegener and Davies immediately start to plan for the attack. First, they need to know exactly what they're up against.
Gathering intelligence on the enemy is critical.
You need to know how many there are. You need to know what type of weapons they've got. Have they got explosives?
Your intelligence will be able to help you decipher who are the good guys and who are the bad guys.
On the plane, Captain Schumann takes an extraordinary risk. He seems to take a routine cigar break and throws the packet onto the runway.
He dropped the pack outside, and somebody had the foresight to pick it up.
It might not seem like much, but it contains vital intelligence for Wegener. Inside the packet, Wegener finds 4 cigars. They are a pre-arranged coded message between Lufthansa pilots and Germany's security forces.
There were 4 in the pack, 2 of them were broken, which indicated there were 2 men and 2 women, and this was correct.
Thanks to Schumann, Wegener now knows exactly how many terrorists he's up against. On the runway, the plane's air conditioning unit stops working.
They were on a tarmac where it's 120 degrees. Terrorists are tired, passengers are tired, thirsty, you name it. Highly stressed on that plane.
The toilets were overflowing, passengers were vomiting, they were passing out. So the interior of the aircraft becomes an incredibly hostile place to be.
The airport authorities try to get the plane's air conditioning system running, but they pump fuel into the wrong tank. It forces the terrorists to open the plane's doors for fresh air. It's another intelligence opportunity for Wegener.
They revealed themselves to photographers who took pictures of them. This helped GSG-9 to identify them so that when they got on the aircraft, they could see exactly who were the terrorists and who were the civilians.
The terrorists' distinctive Che Guevara t-shirts mark them out as clear targets. It's a start, but Wegener is a long way off being ready to go. The assault team don't have all the specialist kit they need for the attack, and nor do the army in Dubai.
We made a list of kit, what we needed. Ladders, shotguns, pistols, and everything else we really wanted. Masking tape, hacksaws.
The authorities in Dubai may not have all the equipment to hand, but they do have one thing: money.
We then had 2 quartermasters with so much money you could choke a camel. And all they did was just go back into town and buy whatever we needed.
Once the equipment arrives, the team goes to work. They saw off shotguns so they're easier to use in a confined space. They spray equipment black so it won't reflect light. Even the ladders are adjusted for the height of the hijacked 737.
And we got to work getting people sawing the ladders to the right length. There's a manual actually on what length the ladders have to be for what type of aircraft.
Although most of the tools the team have to hand are low-tech, Barry has brought along a new SAS weapon that's cutting edge.
We developed a lot of quite exciting assets to help us. One of them was a stun grenade.
The stun grenades create a series of flashes and loud bangs.
Best way to describe it, if you go to disco sometimes and they flash the blue lights and everybody seems to move in a sort of jerky way, well, if you can imagine that with a high explosive in between each jerk, and that disorientated the terrorist enough so you can close with them.
The aim is to create a moment of confusion that will allow Wegener's team to board the plane.
Stun grenade back then was the latest technology, absolutely invaluable as a distraction, absolutely ideal in aircraft.
Flight LH-181 has been in Dubai now for over 2 days.
Get your passports out.
Worryingly for Wegener, Mahmoud is becoming more unhinged. He goes through the hostages' passports, identifying those he thinks are Jewish.
This could have ominous implications for certain passengers should Mahmoud decide to start executing people.
At times, he delivers lectures on Palestinian politics. One is over an hour long.
A scarcely coherent rant, and he gets so fired up by this speech that he ends up discharging his gun. This is just one example of how his mental state is deteriorating as the hijack goes on.
At the other end of the airfield, a replica 737 has been commandeered. Wegener's team of GSG-9, SAS, and local Dubai Defence Force troops now use it to rehearse the assault.
My task was to train a team to actually take over the aircraft.
Because the squad hasn't worked together before, Barry goes back to basics.
So we had a team. I explained exactly what we're going to do, and we would do it as simple as possible. And the idea was to go in through the 2 emergency hatches either side, get past the passengers, into the aisle. 1 2-man team would go forward, 1 2-man team would go to the rear, killing everything in his way until we got control of the aircraft.
Barry walks each person through the drill.
I choked each person on the back, and when I said go, you go there. When I said do this, they went there, and that's how it worked. When you actually start training and you've done it, the drill for 5 or 6 times, then you can do it without being instructed. So we just honed on everything then. Look, you could do it quicker. Eventually, they knew exactly what to do.
After hours of training, the team are ready. Wisniewski finally gets the clearance for the raid from the authorities.
And we had a green light to go that night, and we would have taken them out that night.
The assault team make their final preparations.
You just had the feeling it was going to go.
But then...
we saw the plane taken off. And then we were told that the plane had just left on its own accord. We actually thought it was over. I mean, there was a lot of disappointment. We thought we were going to return to UK.
Operation Fire Magic has suffered a major setback. On board flight LH-181, Mahmoud forces Captain Schumann to set a course south.
You are messing about.
The hijacked plane leaves Dubai and heads towards the country then known as South Yemen, and its capital city, Aden. During the 3-hour flight, the terrorists reveal a terrifying surprise.
The terrorists took on board with them about 2 kilos of plastic explosive. They rig the aircraft, making it effectively into a flying bomb. One press of a button, the whole aircraft could be destroyed.
If that wasn't bad enough, another crisis looms as the plane nears South Yemen. Captain Schumann is refused permission to land.
The runway in Aden had been blocked.
The radio commands say you cannot land here.
But flight LH-181 is running on empty, and there are no airports nearby.
Schumann, however, knows he has no choice. The fuel is exceptionally low.
Without permission, Schumann decides he's going to land on a rough strip next to the main runway. Its soft, sandy surface could cause the plane to flip when it touches down.
This is a rough landing. They are braced for disaster.
Schumann makes it. His passengers are safe for now. But it's only a temporary relief. The Yemeni authorities want flight LH-181 straight back into the air. Schumann is worried his plane isn't airworthy after the emergency landing. He wants to go outside and inspect it.
Yes, you can!
Incredibly, Mahmoud consents to this. Being an aeronautical engineer, he understands that the undercarriage needs to be in sound condition.
Schumann checks underneath the plane. He finds no serious damage, but he still has no fuel and needs to speak to the Yemeni authorities.
Crucially, without Mahmoud's permission, he walks across the runway and goes to the Aden control tower to talk with officials there.
Mahmoud thinks Schumann is escaping and is incensed. The airport authorities don't want to get involved. Schumann is forced to go back to his plane.
I warned you. Why did you defy me?
Mahmoud turns on him.
A terrible silence fell over the aircraft after the shot, and people knew that the situation was changing into a dramatic new sphere.
Whether Mahmoud intended it or not, by murdering Schumann, there's now little hope of a negotiated settlement.
When you kill an innocent person, they just change the dynamics of the game, and now the mission is going to happen. You know, it's going to happen. There's no doubt in any of the team members' minds it's going to happen. It probably needs to go sooner than later.
There was a total mood change with everybody. From now on, we follow them to the end of the earth.
But for now, the GSG-9 team have to wait. The authorities in South Yemen refuse them permission to enter their country. After 10 hours on the ground, the Yemenis want the plane gone, and flight LH-181 is refueled and on the move again. Mahmoud now forces co-pilot Jürgen Vietor to set a new course. This time, flight LH-181 flies from the Middle East to Africa. Its destination, Mogadishu. It is the capital city of the country then known as the Somali Democratic Republic, a stable regime with good relations with the West. In the early morning, the plane touches down at Mogadishu Airport. Captain Schumann's body is unceremoniously dumped on the tarmac. Mahmoud begins negotiations with Somali police and German embassy staff. What they hear alarms them.
Mahmoud's mental state has completely deteriorated.
So you have tired terrorists that you're dealing with, and people can start dying really fast.
He's becoming increasingly unstable as the minutes go by.
Mahmoud sets a new ultimatum. If his German and Palestinian comrades are not released and the $15 million not delivered by 3 o'clock that afternoon, the plane and everyone in it will be blown up. Shortly afterwards, a plane carrying Colonel Wegener, Barry Davies, and a small military team touches down. Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski, the politician, is also on board with the negotiating team. He pleads with Mahmoud for an extension to his deadline. Even if he could secure the release of the prisoners, there is not enough time to get them from Europe to Mogadishu before the time limit expires.
Wisniewski's negotiations with Mahmoud became increasingly fraught as the hijacking went on.
Mahmoud decides to show he means business. With half an hour to go before his deadline expires, he prepares to incinerate the aircraft and its occupants.
What they did do was use the duty-free alcohol, and they poured alcohol over them so they burned quickly. And they actually told them that's what they were doing it for. The people inside the aircraft got the feeling that they were getting close to the end.
Now! Come! Now!
Gabby Dillman, one of the cabin crew, relays a message to the team in the control tower. Feeling abandoned by the German government, it is a desperate farewell.
We know this is the end, and that we shall die. Many of us are too young to die. Still, it is better to die than to live in a world where human lives count for so little. I hope it will be quick.
She makes a heartfelt plea for their lives, but also there's a very bleak note to it. She mentions at one point, "We know that this is the end and we shall all die."
Wisniewski realizes he's out of time and adopts a high-risk strategy. He lies to Mahmoud and tells him exactly what he wants to hear.
They were being talked to and told that they'd won, and told them they could have the money, and told them they could actually talk to their friends who had been released from jails in Germany and would be on an aircraft and they could talk to them very soon. All these things gave them some hope that they were going to win and they were going to live.
Wisniewski's gamble works. Mahmoud believes his comrades have been released. He extends the deadline by 10 hours to give them time to be flown to Somalia. Wisniewski and the Special Forces team now have until 2:30 the following morning to launch the attack. Now Wisniewski asks the Somali government to let the rescue raid go ahead.
We were told to wait until we were cleared. Wisniewski had talked to the Prime Minister there and promised them all sorts of aid and weapons, and that did the trick.
The Somalis agree to the raid, but like in Dubai, they insist that local soldiers are involved as well. But this time, the full GSG-9 contingent of 60 highly trained operatives are allowed into Somalia. GSG-9's commander, Ulrich Wegener, goes to work straight away on the revised plan.
The plan in Mogadishu was a more elaborate plan than we'd had in Dubai. In Mogadishu, we had full team there, and we opened all doors simultaneously and the wings. So we had multiple entry points just in case somebody got blocked up.
Wegener's plan is that his team will approach the aircraft from its blind spot, the rear. They'll position assault ladders against the aircraft's fuselage at 6 entrance points. Somali troops will set off an explosion 300 meters away as a distraction. At the same time, stun grenades will disorientate the enemy long enough to allow Wegener's men in. Once through the doors, the team will systematically move through Flight LH-181 until it is cleared of the terrorists. It's an ingenious plan. But even so, this mission is full of risk.
It is a bad target to attack because you can't predict what the terrorists are going to do in such a confined small area with so many people on board.
An hour before Mahmoud's deadline expires, Wegener's assault team form up at the end of the runway. Separately, GSG-9 snipers have moved into concealed positions around Flight LH-181. They radio Wegener's team with information about the position of the hijackers within the aircraft.
They told us that the blinds were down and coast was clear. And in one big line, we walked towards the rear of the aircraft because there's a blind spot on the aircraft.
The team have to cross hundreds of meters of runway without being seen or heard.
Unfortunately, as we were walking towards the aircraft, the big searchlights which light up the old airfield throwing shadows at least 30 meters long. And if you'd looked out the window, you'd have seen this line of shadows coming towards you.
Fortunately for Wegener's men, Wisniewski's negotiating team distract the terrorists by keeping them busy close to the radio at the front of the aircraft.
We knew exactly where Mahmoud was. He was in the cockpit. The Somalis were talking to Mahmoud and saying, "You've won, my brother. I have just had news from Germany. They have released the friends. They are on a plane. They're in the air. In at least 20 or 30 minutes, you can talk to them directly yourself. We have the money here. We can wheel it in front of you, give you the 15 million. And, you know, please don't kill anybody because you've won, you've won."
The assault team makes it to the plane undetected. They gather under the fuselage in their designated squads and ready themselves for the assault.
The teams with the ladders put them against the wing and also against the doors, front and rear.
The team now scale the wings and get into their final positions.
We crouched up right up next to the body where they can't see you. If someone's looking out the window, if the window is open, they can't see you because there's that little gap of dead ground. Now you've got to be yourself pretty tight in there until you get the go.
On cue, the Somalis set off a huge explosion as a distraction.
It was an almighty bang, and I think a whole Bowser worth of petrol went up. It just lit the place up like daylight.
Mahmoud is stunned in the cockpit, unsure of how to react. It's now or never for the attack.
Ulrich Wegener was counting. He counted down from 10. And then you hear, stand by, go. I can tell you now, the adrenaline just jumps up right to 100%. I threw the first stun grenade over the cockpit, and I threw the second one right across the cabin. And there was a mighty flash and bang.
At that very second, the assault team tried to force the doors open.
These are 32-kilogram doors. They take a lot of force to open.
It's a blur, the door goes down.
And straight away they're inside with guns drawn.
When the GS9 went in, they were shouting Hinleg, get your head down, basically. Stay down, stay down.
They were able to get the hostages' heads down and start attacking the terrorists.
Wegener's men come face to face with their first terrorist. She is gunned down, falling to the ground, severely wounded. They have to move fast. The plane is still rigged with explosives.
The GSG-9 team fight with complete ruthlessness. They have to take out these people and stop them with excessive force.
Another terrorist advances. In his hands are 2 grenades.
These are deadly moments. If the hand grenades go off, the whole aircraft could be wrecked. But GSG-9 officers have only one choice.
One of the grenades, with its pin pulled, falls from the terrorist's hand. The stewardess, Gabby Dillman, is hit in the foot, and another passenger is wounded. But GSG-9 have had a lucky escape.
It wasn't a very good grenade. I mean, I think they were quite weak. I think most of it absorbed by the seating.
GSG-9 must take down the 2 other terrorists before it's too late. As one team moves forward, another tries to get the passengers off the plane as quickly as possible.
They were screaming to get the passengers out, and they started coming out in their droves. Initially, the people that were coming out the back door, which I could see, they were trying to slide down the ladder.
At the front of the aircraft, GSG-9 slowly advance and corner the most dangerous terrorist in the group, Captain Mahmoud.
Mahmoud is in the cockpit area, and he's opened fire with a handgun. He staggers back into the cockpit. He's still dangerous, reaching for a hand grenade.
3 of the cell are now out of action, but there's still 1 terrorist missing.
There are still explosives on the aircraft, there are still weapons, there's still a dangerous individual.
The missing terrorist is a woman, but where is she? Could she be hiding amongst the passengers? Wegener's men have to treat everyone as a potential suspect.
The GSG-9 team have to find her, and find her quickly.
Inside the plane, the hunt for the missing terrorist continues.
They heard the person in there.
She's been hiding in the toilet. The 4th and final terrorist is taken out. The mission is over. 7 minutes after bursting into the plane, Wegener radios in the code word, springtime. All of the terrorists are either dead or wounded, and the hostages are safely off the plane. Operation Fire Magic has been a complete success.
Everybody was really elated. We were all patting ourselves on the back and saying how good we were, and we were really pleased.
Wisniewski can breathe a sigh of relief. The politicians' tireless negotiations have played a crucial part in the mission's success. As the hostages have their first taste of freedom for 6 days, the one surviving terrorist, Suhaila Sayeh, is stretchered off the plane, defiant to the end.
The moment they got Suhaila out, which they thought was dead, she was very much alive, and they put her on a stretcher, and she put her hands up in the air and 2 fingers and shouted, "Free Palestine."
Later that morning, the team whose bravery and expertise had bought 86 hostages their freedom flies back to Germany.
And I didn't realise Lufthansa carried so much alcohol, and we made really good friends with the GSG-9 on that time coming back.
Wegener and his team land in Germany to a hero's welcome. Operation Fire Magic is a massive blow against the morale of the PFLP and its terrorist allies.
The mission in Mogadishu sent a message out to the terrorist world that they no longer held all the cards. The German authorities could say now that we are in control and that we can get back at terrorists if they try to strike at us.
When the news of GSG-9's success broke, 3 of the 11 Baader-Meinhof prisoners that Mahmoud had demanded be released commit suicide in prison. In the following years, Special Forces teams around the world study Operation Fire Magic as the textbook hostage rescue from a hijacked plane.
The GSG-9 mission would rank right up there with one of the most successful special operations missions in history because of everything kind of working together. The political side, the intelligence gathering side, negotiators, and the special operations drill that went pretty much flawless.
The operation in Mogadishu put GSG-9 on the map and gave them a deserved reputation for tactical excellence and for efficiency. And they've built on that reputation ever since.
Deep in a remote Afghan province, a criminal gang sees 2 female aid workers. The kidnappers make extensive demands and threaten to sell them to the Taliban.
That's always the worry. There is little precedent for actually getting anyone back.
To free them, a combined team of the 2 finest special forces in the world is mobilized. Britain's SAS and the US Navy SEALs.
A hostage rescue, a SEAL holds dear to his heart. They risk their lives to go save a life.
But hostage rescues are difficult and dangerous. Mistakes will be fatal.
This ain't no computer game, this is for real.
Operation Jubilee is the true story of how the best planned and executed one of their most challenging missions. In Afghanistan's most remote northerly province, Badakhshan, 2 aid workers are traveling with their Afghan guides to visit a clinic and provide medical assistance. 28-year-old Helen Johnston is a British nutritionist and graduate of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine.
Helen Johnston stated before she went, actually, that was what she wanted to do. She wanted to teach mothers, young mothers, how to look after their children properly.
With her is 26-year-old Kenyan health worker, Mogawe or Ure. Both women work for the Swiss-based charity MedAir. They aim to address basic issues of healthcare, malnutrition, and sanitation in what is often considered one of the poorest, most deprived areas in the world.
Badakhshan is an extremely poor region with an extremely high child mortality rate, which is one of the reasons why NGOs go there to try and reduce that. There are major problems getting food in during the winter. If you're going to work there, you really have to have an understanding of what you're getting yourself into.
Until now, Badakhshan has been considered relatively safe. The Taliban aren't active in the area. Attacks are rare. Helen and her colleagues think they'll be okay. But Afghanistan is a dangerous and unpredictable country.
Everyone in Afghanistan's got a gun. I mean, these guys are full of smiles. I mean, they could smile for the world. Big cheesy grin, and you think, oh, well, I'm okay here now. You know, they're not going to do anything. Doesn't mean to say they're not going to cut your head off.
As Helen and Mogawe head up into the mountains, what they don't realize is that they're being watched.
The one thing when you're a Westerner operating on your own in a place like Afghanistan is that you become a target simply because of the perception that you may have money. If you've got $400 or $500 in cash, you know, that's 5 or 6 years' salary in some parts of Afghanistan.
It's mind-blowing. I don't think they understand the risks involved.
Stop! Stop! Up there!
On a remote hillside road, they are ambushed by a well-armed gang. They steal cameras, mobile phones, laptops, and wallets. At this stage, Helen and her colleagues have no idea who has attacked them or what will become of them. Are they bandits, Taliban, or even Al-Qaeda? This is the beginning of a terrifying ordeal. Within days, the kidnappers make contact with the Afghan government and release a video of demands.
We have captured 2 Western women. We are holding them ransom. Our price is $11 million.
They plucked this figure out the air. We want $11 million, and we want some of our colleagues who have banged up in prison in Kabul, we want those guys released.
Our demands, these women will be lost.
So that's their negotiating position. Otherwise, we will kill the hostages.
You can never find us. We are well hidden.
So from their point of view, you know, that's a very strong position. We're hidden away in Badakhshan. There are no security forces anywhere near us. We're tucked away in a valley. No one's ever going to find us.
The video does reveal some good news. The kidnappers aren't political. They're not Al-Qaeda or Taliban, just bandits out to further their own interests.
When you think about it, this was a group that had an agenda. They wanted to get money, yes, but they also wanted to get members of their own group out of prison.
The gang are a mixture of local drug runners and criminals, led by a known brigand, Abdul Ahad Mujahir.
In a society which is as poor as Badakhshan, young men often gravitate to the money that insurgent gangs can provide. And often, what we would regard as crime, smuggling, trafficking, what they regard as simply the ancient ways of their province.
The gangs don't go around with a specific label. They are coalitions of interest, and they are very often just brigands and bandits who are there for human flesh. They're there to trade in human flesh because it's more valuable than stealing sheep.
Four days later, news of the kidnapping reaches the British government.
Back in the UK, this message would have come through the Foreign Office to Number 10. We've got a hostage. An aid worker has gone missing. This is pretty much world news.
The British have a limited number of options. 1, pay the money. But Britain doesn't negotiate with terrorists. 2, hope the situation can be resolved by the Afghan authorities. Unlikely. Or 3, send in the troops. This is the option they go for. The operation is passed on to the International Security Assistance Force. 49 countries make up NATO-led ISAF, and they oversee all military operations in Afghanistan. At their Kabul headquarters, rescuing the hostages becomes a priority mission.
The picking of the teams and putting them on standby will start very, very quickly, once the balloon goes up, within 2 or 3 hours.
You've got the commander ISAF, who's an American at the time, General John Allen. You've got Adrian Bradshaw, ex-SAS, who's the deputy commander of ISAF. And he's probably saying, you know what, let the SAS get her out. You know, it's good for everybody. It's good for the country, it's good for the operation, and there are few better at rescuing hostages than the SAS.
The planners begin by asking basic questions.
Where was that person last seen? What are the enemy forces surrounding that person? Where is that location? How is our best way to get from where we are now to that location? And can we expect enemy resistance? All these factors go through the planner's mind in planning a hostage rescue.
At the back of their minds is the fact that hostage extractions are notoriously difficult, as Britain knows to her cost. The British are haunted by an event that happened 2 years earlier. The death of British aid worker Linda Norgrove.
Well, the incident with Linda was very, very unfortunate, very sad. First time it's happened in our history.
Norgrove was snatched by the Taliban in almost identical circumstances. Fearing for her life, the British authorized a rescue mission conducted by US Special Forces. But it went terribly wrong.
There's no handbook that you can pull down and says, oh, how to rescue a hostage. Duh, that's how we do it.
When the fragmentation was thrown, it wasn't realized that Linda was there nearby on the ground. And it was a terrible, terrible accident.
The 6 Taliban holding Linda Norgrove were killed, but so was she, dying from shrapnel wounds inflicted by a fragmentation grenade.
It was a valiant and courageous effort by the forces to rescue Linda, and of course you can imagine that Special Forces with such a task only want one outcome, and that is to save the hostage who was killed in the end by her captors.
I can absolutely understand how it would have happened. I mean, it was actually, just something that could happen, and it's part of war, unfortunately. It's just part of war.
In Kabul, Generals Allen and Bradshaw start putting together an operational plan.
Any military operation nowadays is defined by what's called the 3 Fs. Find, that's location. Fixing, making sure that the people in that location are there when you get there. And finish, which is the conduct of the operation itself, and often meaning, of course, kill. Those are the 3 Fs.
Initially, the mission planners focus on the first F, finding the gang.
Well, of course, you need the location of where they're being held. You need strength of the enemy, what their daily routine is, you need, and you need luck.
Finding the rough location of the hostages proves straightforward. The kidnappers have been careless.
It's important to remember, I think, that mobile phones are nothing more than little radios. Now, in Afghanistan, everybody has a mobile phone.
By using their mobiles in negotiations, the kidnappers have given themselves away. British intelligence have intercepted the calls. Using a combination of GPS and cell network triangulation, it is relatively easy to establish a rough location. From this information, they deduce the kidnappers are somewhere within a deep cave complex in the vast Koh-i-Laram forest in northwest Badakhshan. Immediately, they realize this presents a complication. Even if they can find them, caves can be very difficult to assault.
We have known floor plans and unknown floor plans. For a cave, you could pretty much assume it was an unknown floor plan, not knowing how deep that was going to go.
The rescuers need more detailed information. They need to pinpoint the exact location of the kidnappers to within a few hundred feet. So they launch their unmanned aerial vehicles, drones.
Once you've identified, you've found the hostages, you need to establish the environment they're in. That's where satellite surveillance, drone surveillance will come in.
Flown remotely by operators in California, these spies in the sky can spot the kidnappers without being detected. Using infrared cameras with digitally enhanced zoom lenses, they can identify the heat signature of a human body from an altitude of 3 kilometers.
They can see everything. They can see what weapons they've got, what guards they've got. They can see the approaches. They can see the routine of the guards. They can see where people are being split up.
A drone is much stealthier than a helo. A helo is loud, it's noisy, it's big. It can be shot out of the sky. A drone can get in there, get across over the mountain pass, come back with the information our troops need to conduct an op. Drones are beautiful.
Thanks to the unseen drone, the exact location of the hostages is pinpointed. They now keep the kidnappers under 24-hour surveillance. They can see that the gang are well armed with AK-47 assault rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, and a Russian belt-fed machine gun, capable of shooting down helicopters.
So, with a very short period of time, they know precisely who they're dealing with, what their weapons are, what the threat they pose is, and where they're located.
Over the next few days, the Joint Special Forces Group watched the kidnappers' activities on real-time video, transmitted via satellite from from the drone and use this information to plan details of the rescue. Unaware they are being watched, the kidnappers continue negotiations. This is all part of the ISAF plan.
It is essential to negotiate. It is essential to get the go-betweens talking, because by getting the go-betweens talking, you begin to profile the principal players.
They would have been sold a line that, yes, we're negotiating. Yes, we will give you everything you want. Yes, we will release the guy from prison. Yes, we will give you your $11 million. It's coming in a black suitcase. What denomination do you want? Trying to develop some sort of rapport with them so that they feel comfortable that the last thing they think is going to happen is that someone's going to boot the door down and shoot them in the face.
From their extensive military resources, ISAF commanders Generals John Allen and Adrian Bradshaw select who to send on the mission.
It would be expected, almost as a matter of etiquette and protocol, that the Brits would be asked if they could lead this, what help do they need, and they would work it from there.
If Britain is taking the lead, this can mean only one thing. This will be a job for the world-famous SAS. The Special Air Service is the elite special forces and counter-terrorism unit of the British Army. Once a largely secretive organization, they dramatically came to the attention of the world in 1980.
For 40 years, the Special Air Service Regiment maintained the finest hostage rescue team in the world, and we literally saw their skills at work in the famous Iran embassy siege.
Everybody sees the pictures of the Iranian embassy back in the early 80s, on a black kit, the flashbangs going off, and everyone being pulled out alive apart from the terrorists. Kind of sort of did the SES out of a business for a long period, because they were so good that terrorists didn't fancy London to go and pick a fight with.
Often operating in superbly trained four-man units, the SAS prides itself on its ability to fight unsupported anywhere in the world.
You guys one pair, Israel move is another! Move!
Experts in stealth and surprise, their surveillance skills help them monitor, infiltrate and execute targets with deadly efficiency.
Why the SAS? Because if the shit hits the fan and it goes tits up, then they're probably the best guys to deal with a situation like that. You know, they ain't going to be fluffy about things. They're going to get on with the mission and sort it.
The SAS were deployed to Afghanistan in 2001 and have been heavily active in countless covert missions ever since. Widely regarded as the best of their kind, they are the model for countless special forces across the world, teaching and training them in the techniques that have made the regiment famous.
CQB, close quarter battle. It requires an intense type of training, live ammunition, live training in small confined rooms. And you have to be extremely careful. The blokes have to be totally switched on as live rounds are flying all over the place.
But the SAS aren't the only elite force in Afghanistan on hand to rescue Helen and Morgawe. America has an impressive range of special forces, but one unit really stands out.
You know, some people say SEAL Team 6 are the best of the best.
Since arriving in Afghanistan, the SEALs have operated as a special reconnaissance unit, often out in the field for up to 45 days at a time. They have killed over 200 Taliban fighters and destroyed tens of thousands of pounds of weapons and ordnance. Key operatives in the war on terror SEAL Team 6's most famous mission was assassinating the world's most wanted man.
Most recently, of course, SEALs are known to have killed bin Laden. They got in the helicopter, flew across the border, went into Abbottabad. Shortly after, came back with bin Laden in a body bag.
With access to the world's best weapons, best communications, and best aircraft, they are America's ultimate high-tech killing machine.
You know, a lot of people ask, what makes a Navy SEAL? And it's hard to really put your finger on it. The main thing that SEALs have in common is they don't quit. No matter how hard it is, they don't quit. You have to be willing to put your country and the mission in front of everything.
Operating as part of the US Navy, this elite unit, trained to operate on sea, air, and land, are America's 911 call-out. SEALs are hand-picked after years of intensive screening and a grueling selection process. Trained in the use of all weapons systems. In 1 year, SEAL Team 6 fired more rounds than the entire US Marine Corps ammunition allowance. They make for perfect partners with the SAS on a rescue mission of this complexity.
SEAL Team 6 and the SAS complement each other in many, many ways. For one, we cross-trained with the SAS for years. We love working with the SAS. We're the same mindset. We have the same attitude when it comes to training and battle.
Just 6 days after the aid workers are abducted, a combined force comprising 28 members of the SAS and an equal number of US Navy SEALs fly up to Badakhshan and establish themselves in a forward operating base around 30 minutes flying time from the hostages' location.
A hostage rescue, a SEAL holds dear to his heart. They risk their lives to go save a life. Now, if it's an innocent woman, if it's children, if it's aid workers, it doesn't matter. So it is a very, very dangerous mission. But it's what we thrive on doing.
Whilst waiting for the mission to be green-lit, the SAS and SEALs begin planning how to take out the kidnappers.
You have to do rehearsals. Every man has to know the job. So you do a walkthrough rehearsal, you have a sand model. It could be back in the ops room with full facilities, or it could be out in the field somewhere in the desert. And you have to make do with bits of rock, twigs.
It may all seem very low-tech, but this process is essential in planning a mission.
It's to make you familiar with the method of infiltration, to know where your mate's going to be, to know where the other group's going to be.
Quick, snap, snap, down, bang.
See, your mind is aware of where everybody else is.
A key problem is how to get to the hostages without being detected. As the caves are in such a remote region, troops will need to be inserted by helicopter. But helicopters make a lot of noise. If the kidnappers hear them, the hostages will be killed.
That's all we got, all right?
To maintain the element of surprise, they must land 2 miles from the caves and then march to their objective. But this is also problematic. Identifying possible landing sites is a tough task given the nature of the terrain, highly mountainous and thick with forest. Besides rehearsing the physical elements of the mission, they don't want to accidentally kill the captives, so they spend hours memorizing friend from foe.
TOC, Tactical Operations Centers, have a board of hostages in the country, known terrorists on the hit list, and the SEALs will come in and they look at this every day. They memorize what these hostages look like. They know what the terrorists look like, and they're waiting for the green light to get one of these missions.
All that remains is the go-ahead. Seven days after being captured, one of the drones monitoring the hostages' position gleans vital new intel. Helen and Morgawe have been separated from their Afghan guides. The two groups are now being held in separate caves in different locations, over a mile apart. The rescuers will need to adapt their plan and assault two targets at the same time. The news gets worse. British intelligence intercept a conversation between the kidnappers and the Taliban.
For a criminal organisation to operate in Afghanistan, it's probably going to rub shoulders at some stage with the Taliban.
From the intercepts, they learn that the kidnappers have made contact with the Taliban and are planning to do a deal.
They may have realised they could sell the hostage on to the Taliban. The Taliban might be interested in that because they could sell the hostage on to Al-Qaeda. And that's always the worry. There is little precedent for actually getting anyone back. Al-Qaeda are going to execute them and going to make a big deal of it.
There is now a very real threat to the women's lives. Analysts expect the kidnappers to do the deal with the Taliban within 24 hours.
There are certain trigger points in operations like one of these will be an imminent handover or imminent killing. In this case, an intercept came in to the effect that a Taliban unit had asked for a show of intent, kill one of the hostages and hand the other one over.
For the American commander of ISAF, General John Allen, this is a game-changer moment.
A game changer would be in this situation that we think the hostage is going to be moved to another location or sold or crossing a border that we can't get into that country. That could mean, let's speed up. We got to get on the helos right away. We got to get to that target right away. If you can still make the timeline before the person's moved, you can save a life.
General Allen relays the information to London, advising that the mission be put into effect immediately.
It was at that point that things started to move very, very quickly. And I think within a matter of hours, the Prime Minister was told that they needed to launch a military operation very quickly to recover the hostages. Otherwise, there was a very strong risk that one of them would have been killed.
The mission is greenlit. It's all go. Now the nuts and bolts of the operation are finalized.
As far as the execution of the operation goes, you would have real-time intelligence on the ground from photography, aerial photography. You would know their routine. You would know the weapons. You probably know who the commander was.
The 70-strong rescue force are put on high alert and run through final checks. They know what they're up against and just how tough this mission will be. Any errors could be catastrophic.
Afghanistan is very, very difficult. We're actually going in the backyard of the enemy. When it comes to taking our helos through those mountain passes, it really just takes one lucky shooter with a shoulder-fired weapon, and he can knock out a helicopter out of the sky.
The SEAL and SAS commanders break the plan down into stages. The helicopter landing zone is 2 miles from the caves. This should be far enough away to mask the engine noise and maintain the element of surprise. The troops will then split into 2 assault forces and march through the steep wooded valleys at night to their objectives. The SAS will target the cave where kidnappers are believed to be guarding Miss Johnston and her Kenyan colleague.
So I have a question, sir.
SEAL Team 6 will advance on a separate cave complex where kidnappers are believed to be holding the guides. On arrival, both units will storm the caves, neutralize the kidnappers, and secure the hostages. Finally, hostages and troops will evacuate by the same entry route and fly by helicopter back to base. The whole mission is planned in minute-by-minute detail.
The special forces involved in the operations, the American and the British, would have had a thorough understanding of the ground. They would have known their point of entry, point of exit, their operation on the objective. They would have known the timings, the weather, the wind state, everything. As much intelligence as possible. They would have had a thorough understanding of exactly what they wanted, minute by minute, step by step, from the beginning of the operation to the actual rescue and extraction.
Four hours before takeoff, the Special Forces begin kitting up. Limited helicopter space and the long march ahead of them mean they can only take the bare essentials.
They try to stay light. They try not to carry a lot of gear because it slows you down. You have a helmet on, probably with a camera. You've got a mic so you can talk on the radio. You've got your goggles because of wind blast and the helo. You've got body armor, hopefully, front and back. You got a sidearm, which is a secondary weapon. It's a pistol. It's usually a 9mm pistol. And you got your assault weapon. It could be an AK, it could be an M4. It might be a submachine gun.
H-hour. The launch time for the operation is set for 5 p.m. local time on Friday the 1st of June. As the light begins to fade, MH-60L Black Hawk helicopters wait on the flight line.
You're approaching the chopper. Now, any soldier will tell you this that's been on ops, the smell of avgas that's burnt by the helicopter instills a bit of sort of seriousness into the whole situation, okay? This ain't no computer game, this is for real.
The pilots crank up their engines and the combined SAS Navy SEAL assault units board.
So you board the helicopter, you're constantly checking your weapon, making sure that the magazine is still there, you're checking your pouches on your webbing and everything. And, you know, some people have a nervous twitch and, you know, other people don't. It's just the way they deal with it. You're thinking about what you have to do if you have a malfunction. You know, it's a drill that you do in your head.
The flight to the landing zone takes just 30 minutes. By landing 2 miles from the caves, the approaching helicopters aren't heard by the kidnappers. The first troops on the ground secure the HLS helicopter landing site at the top of a rocky valley. They then coordinate the arrival of the remaining Black Hawks. The troops disembark. Then the helicopters fly off into the night.
And then there's silence. There's absolute silence. And then the sweat is then mixed with this cold air. And then you realise that, you know, this is it, this is it.
The assault force now splits up and heads off to the 2 different objectives. The SAS will head for the cave containing the aid workers. the Navy SEALs to the cave containing the guides. It is a 2-mile march across rough terrain, covered in dense forest, to their assault positions around the caves.
You go into your routine because you've rehearsed it. You know what to expect, and then once everything's set and you believe there's no enemy about, you move off, all silent, and you move off to a point that you already know where it is, and that's the start line.
For Special Forces, marching 2 miles is nothing. The challenge is keeping it quiet.
To do a 2-mile trek in the woods at night silently takes a long time. Everybody scans, looks around, walks, takes a couple of steps, paying a lot more attention to how they're stepping and where they're stepping, because you can't give your position away because you've blown your element of surprise.
In their Kabul operations room, General Allen and his British deputy, Lieutenant General Adrian Bradshaw, are watching the events, maintaining full situation awareness through images relayed via satellite from the soldiers' helmet cameras.
Absolutely everything is recorded, so they see what the soldiers see. They're following through the battle, and it's all coming back. So it's a very, very tense operation.
They can see the SAS arrive at their location and stake out the cave. 3 miles away, they watch as SEAL Team 6 get into position. Outside the cave, they believe the guides to be held in.
The longer a team's been together, the less communication has to take place. Hand signals are fine, but if it's pitch black at night, you can't see the hand signals. Once you get really close up and you're getting ready, what we call the stack, to attack, sometimes there's squeezes. Means I'm ready.
Just before they move in, there is time for one final kit check.
The more experience you have, it does help because you know what you're getting into. Your confidence is up high. Generally with me, I just used to get on with it. Every soldier wants that combat experience. It's the pinnacle of your career.
At ISAF headquarters, Lieutenant General Bradshaw waits for both teams to get into position. It is vital that both attacks are coordinated. Surprise is key. Only when he is certain both teams are ready does he give the order to assault. First, throw in the flashbang grenades.
We use those to shock the occupants of that building or that cave.
Then, storm the caves.
He'll say move, his partner will say moving. Everything is quick and concise. You go in there and you flood that area, and it's all eyes, and you are looking for threats. You have people looking right, people looking left, people looking at the center of the cave.
Go left, go right!
In 2 seconds, that whole cave, that initial entry, is covered by at least 4 shooters.
In just minutes, it is all over.
What happens right after a mission like that is you look around. A signal might be tap yourself on the head with a thumbs up. It means I'm okay. I have all my gear. I have all my weapon. I have my ammo. I have enough ammo to get out of here.
The dead kidnappers are searched for intelligence and weapons, but they don't find any hostages. Back in the ops room, The commanders are alarmed. Are they too late? Have the hostages been moved? Or worse, are they dead? The focus now shifts to the second cave. Everything will now depend on what the SAS find there.
So once you're on the start line and the signal's then given to go off, and then you're moving off, and then time slows down.
As the SAS move in, they are spotted by the kidnappers. They respond with a barrage of shots.
The element of surprise is gone since the first trigger's been pulled, and then it's speed, aggression and surprise. You get in there, you mix it with them, you knock them down. Basically, there is a routine and a rhythm, and it tends to fit into place. People know when the shit hits the fan, it goes though plan. Then you go in, you're in full motion then. Everything is just heightened to such a point whereby you don't know you're killing, you're just doing it, and you know you're killing the right target.
Powerless to intervene. In the ops room, commanders nervously watch their screens. Are the aid workers still alive? Only time will tell.
You clear your room, then you move on to the next. You don't know, like most battles really, that you don't know the outcome until it's finished.
In the cave, all the kidnappers are killed. Now the SAS can search for the hostages. Helen and Morgawe are found, alive and well, along with their guides. After giving the captives a quick checkup, they are dragged out of the cave. Now they all need to get home safely. But the mission is still far from over.
Just because you've got the hostage and you've killed these sons of bitches, there could be another load coming up around the corner. So you've still got to be switched on.
Barefoot, the hostages are carried by the soldiers the entire 2 miles back to the helicopter landing site before flying back to Kabul.
You don't stay on target too quick, you get the hell out of there. Okay, you exfil, you get out there rapid. Okay, you grab as much intelligence off the dead as you can, and then you trash it all.
Within hours, they are approaching ISAF headquarters in Kabul.
It's really not till you land and get home and get the hostage off safely to the docs or the medical crew or the intel folks can you really take a deep breath. The op's not over till you get home.
After 12 terrifying days, the hostages' ordeal is over. This is a textbook operation. Hostages freed, all the kidnappers eliminated, and no members of the Special Forces teams have been hurt. In the early hours of the morning, Downing Street is informed that the rescue mission has been a complete success. British Prime Minister David Cameron personally speaks by telephone to the soldiers involved in the mission, praising their courage and thanking them for achieving such a successful outcome.
You know, there's nothing as good as a special forces operation working successfully that you can brag about.
Later in the morning outside 10 Downing Street, he announces the success of the mission to the world's press.
It was an extraordinary, brave, breathtaking even operation that our troops had to carry out, and I pay tribute to their incredible skill and dedication. I also pay tribute to the American troops who took part in a related operation.
In Kabul, For the combined special forces returning back to base, everything has gone perfectly.
Politically and militarily, it was a textbook operation. Couldn't have gone any better.
You know, a lot of people who might think, well, that's how it's supposed to happen. But to make all the pieces connect and all that training and all the things that could have gone wrong, for them to come out with a perfect report, hostages okay, SEALs okay, terrorists dead, it's a super big achievement.
Operation Jubilee is an outstanding example of a complex mission, flawlessly executed at every phase. From finding the hostages and gathering intel, to prepping the teams and insertion into the locations, before killing the kidnappers and rescuing the aid workers.
This whole mission is a testament to professionalism of the hostage rescue teams, both the British and in this case the Americans. It's a testament to the command structures and the intelligence structures involved, to the experience gained over 10 years in terrain like this. So a real textbook case of cooperation and professionalism.
Although the names of those involved will never be revealed, their contribution is in the best traditions of the service and builds on the reputation and mystique of the finest special forces in the world.
The narrative to this whole story, as well as getting the hostages back, is don't mess with the British. Don't kidnap our people, because this is what's going to happen to you.
Thank you to Conflict of Nations World War III for sponsoring this video. Remember, you can play right now for free, but if you download from our link in the description within the next 30 days, you can claim your free gift of 13,000 gold as well as 1 month premium subscription. The War Room is waiting. See if you have what it takes to lead your country to victory.